In this chapter, we're going to build an HTML page, piece by piece, starting with the basic framework for our page and adding style as we go. To get started, I'll open up my HTML editor.
I'm using TextEdit here on the Mac, but any text editor will do. Windows users can use Notepad. I'm also going to be using Firefox, but again, you can use any web browser you would like, and you should get the same results.
And I'll note that the rich text formatting tools are not present, so I'm in text editing mode, so I can start to create my HTML. I'll start by creating an opening HTML tag, adding some carriage returns with my keyboard, and closing the HTML tag as soon as I create it, giving me an HTML element with no content in between. Again, as we work through this chapter and the next couple of chapters, we're going to be creating HTML. This HTML will not conform exactly to the proper formatting of XHTML. We're going to build up to that. I just wanted to call that to your attention because the opening HTML tag itself is structured slightly differently in XHTML. The tagging structure of HTML 4.01 and XHTML 1.0 is very, very similar. HTML version to version, depending on the specific implementation, is usually quite similar. So for this lesson and the next several lessons, we're going to work in an HTML format and then observe how that format changes when we want to validate our code as XHTML at a later time. As we've seen, we use HTML to define a structure for how our page is going to work. And we use the head element to position items which are necessary for the page to function within our HTML code, and we use the body element to structure our HTML code for those items which are to be viewed by the website visitor. So I'll go ahead and create my opening head tag and close it as soon as I create it. And I'll also create my opening body tag and close the body tag as soon as I create it. That again being my own personal preference, essentially me trying to ensure that I don't make a mistake later on, a mistake being to forget to close an element. If I were to remove the head tag now or at a later time, my web page would break. My code would no longer be valid. My element would no longer work, and I would see weird errors on my web page. We'll take a look at that in a little while. But for right now, we're going to build up some text on our web page. We'll type a few lines of text, such as flavors, in lowercase, chocolate, my personal favorite, vanilla, chocolate chip, mint chip, and watermelon sherbet. TextEdit decided to help me a little bit by showing me spelling mistakes as I had created them, and I'll accept these edits. Now we know that in HTML, white space that we leave in our code is ignored by the web browser. Let's take a look at what that looks like. To observe what your web page looks like in a web browser, you must first save your file. So I'll go File and Save As. In this case, I'll save my file in the Chapter 02 folder, and I'll call my file index.htm, or HTML if you prefer. Make sure Unicode is selected under Plain Text Encoding, and click Save. To view this web page in a web browser, open up your web browser. In my case, I have Firefox. If you're on the PC, you might have Internet Explorer. And then under the File menu, select Open File, and browse to the location on the machine that you're working where you've saved your file. In this case, we saved our work in the Project Files folder, in the Chapter 02 folder, and there's our file, index.htm. I'll select that file and click Open. And, as I expected, all of the words appear on the same line. Let's understand why that is. I'll size down my web browser so that I can stagger the two windows, TextEdit and my web browser side by side, so I can observe the code and the way that code is interpreted by the web browser. Looking at the code, I can see that there is no instruction after the word flavors to tell the web browser to drop down to the next line before displaying the word chocolate. One way that I could get an instruction into this page would be to use the break tag. The syntax for the break tag in XHTML is open caret, BR for break, space, / close caret. The red dots that appear underneath the BR in the BR tag are just an indicator to you from TextEdit that it's trying to spell check the text that you're typing. TextEdit doesn't know you're creating HTML. It doesn't know HTML from words, and so it will try to spell check everything. That could be handy when you're writing words, such as vanilla, and you misspell it, but not so helpful for our HTML tag. So I'm just going to ignore those red dots under the BR and the BR tag. And I will continue to add breaks to this formatting because I want to have a new line appear after each word. I'll add a BR space / close caret after the word chocolate. And to make sure that everything is working, I'll go File and Save to save my file. Switch over to my web browser, locate the Reload Current Page button in Firefox or Refresh on the PC in Internet Explorer. Hit that button and observe that the two breaks that I added after the word flavors and the word chocolate are doing their job in the web browser. So I'll continue to add breaks after each of these words. Now I might want to make things easy on myself, because as I start to type, if I'm going to add a break after each line, this could be a long document, I might start to make a mistake. To reduce the chances of me making a mistake, I'm going to select, using my mouse, my properly formatted break tag, and under the Edit menu, I'm going to copy that into memory. I'll then position my mouse after the word vanilla, and under the Edit menu, I'll select Paste. Or on the Mac, Command V, on the PC, Control V, to put a break tag after the word vanilla. And on my keyboard, I'll hit Command V, again on the PC, Control V, to add break tags after each of these lines. Again, I'll just type that in, BR / close caret, File and Save, switch over to my browser, refresh, and observe the page to be displayed the way I intended it to be based on the HTML code that I had written. As I look at this HTML code, it's starting to look a little bit messy to me. So I'm going to put my mouse before each of these words and hit the Tab key on my keyboard. I'm doing that for each of these lines. I'm going to use the arrow keys on my keyboard to get my cursor in the proper place to tab each of these lines in. I'm doing that so that it's easier on my eye to see that these lines are nested, meaning they're contained within the body element. Just by tabbing those in, I can easily identify at a glance that these lines belong to this element. Later on, as you build up a page that's more complex, nesting is going to assist you tremendously in analyzing your code as we build more and more complex pages. Having changed the presentation of my HTML within my HTML document does not necessarily affect the way that the page is displayed. You've seen that we just added tabs before these words. But if you save this file and reload the page in your web browser, notice that the words don't move. The web browser is interpreting your lines of HTML as they are read, ignoring the space around the text and the HTML markup that you add around that text.